I remember the time because it burned itself into my mind like a brand. I was standing in my kitchen, halfway through rinsing a coffee mug, when my phone buzzed against the granite countertop. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize, the school's number. Something inside me went cold. Schools don't call parents in the middle of the day unless something is wrong. Hello. I answered, already holding my breath. Mr. Carter, a woman said, her voice tight, professional, and trembling just enough to betray fear. This is Lincoln Ridge Middle School. There's been an incident involving your daughter. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered in the sink. What kind of incident? I asked. There was a pause. Too long. Sir, she said carefully, you need to come to the school immediately. My heart began to hammer. Is my daughter hurt? Another pause. She's physically unharmed, the woman said. But what? She's in shock. Emily Carter had been sitting in her usual seat near the back of the classroom, sketching flowers in the margins of her notebook while pretending to listen to a lesson on the American Revolution. She was 13, quiet, observant, kind in a world that often punished kindness. She didn't notice Tyler Reynolds staring at her at first. Tyler sat 2 rows ahead of her. Everyone knew who he was. He was that kid. The one who never got in trouble no matter what he did. The one who bullied teachers as easily as students. The one who smirked when the principal walked by. The one whose mother ran the homeowners association like a dictatorship. And whose father was the county sheriff. Tyler had been harassing Emily for weeks. Snide comments. Kicking her chair. Whispering insults when teachers weren't looking. She never told us. Not me. Not her mother. Emily believed that if she stayed quiet, it would stop. It didn't. That morning, she felt a sharp kick against the back of her chair. Stop, she whispered. Tyler leaned back, close enough for only her to hear. You think you're better than me? He said softly. Emily shook her head. Leave me alone. Tyler smiled. That was when he reached into his backpack. At first, Emily thought it was a joke. It didn't make sense. Guns didn't belong in classrooms. They existed on TV, in video games, in faraway news stories. Not here. Not in her school. Tyler pulled it out slowly, deliberately. A black handgun. Real. Heavy. He didn't point it at the teacher. He didn't wave it around. He leaned forward, turned slightly in his chair, and pressed it against Emily's thigh beneath the desk, hidden from everyone else. Her breath stopped. If you tell anyone, Tyler whispered, my dad will make sure your family disappears. Emily froze. Her hands trembled. Her pencil rolled off the desk and clattered to the floor, drawing a few glances, but no one saw the gun. No one except her. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She raised her hand instead. Yes, Emily, the teacher said. I don't feel well, she whispered. Can I go to the nurse? The teacher nodded, distracted. Emily stood up on shaking legs. Tyler pulled the gun back into his bag, smiling like he'd just won a game. Good choice, he murmured. Emily walked out of the classroom. And then she collapsed in the hallway. I don't remember the drive to the school. I remember red lights. I remember my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I remember thinking of Emily's laugh, the way she used to sit on the kitchen counter and talk about art, the way she still slept with a nightlight. When I pulled into the parking lot, something was wrong. Very wrong. Police cars lined the entrance. Unmarked SUVs. Officers with rifles. Yellow tape flapping in the wind. And then I saw them. Black armor. Helmets. Assault weapons. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't precaution. This was a response. I jumped out of my car and ran toward the entrance before an officer stopped me. Sir, you can't. My daughter is inside, I yelled. Emily Carter. The officer's expression changed. Just slightly. He spoke into his radio. A moment later, the doors opened, and he walked out. Sheriff Daniel Reynolds. Tyler's father. Sheriff Reynolds was tall, broad-shouldered, and calm in a way that felt rehearsed. His uniform was spotless. His badge gleamed in the sunlight. Behind him, officers moved with practiced precision, but all eyes were on him. Mr. Carter, he said, extending a hand. I didn't take it. Where is my daughter? I demanded. She's safe, he said smoothly. There was a misunderstanding at the school. A misunderstanding? My voice shook. There are SWAT teams here. He smiled faintly. We take all threats seriously. What threat? His eyes locked onto mine. A report was made, he said, that a student may have brought a weapon to school. My stomach dropped. And I asked, and the situation is under control. Who brought the weapon? I said. There was a beat, just one. Then he said, we're still investigating. Behind him, his wife emerged from one of the SUVs. Melissa Reynolds, HOA president. Karen incarnate. Her lips were tight. Her eyes were cold. And when she looked at me, there was no fear. Only anger. As if I were the problem. That was the moment I realized something terrible. This wasn't just about a gun. This was about power. And they had all of it. They didn't let me see Emily right away. That alone told me everything I needed to know. I was escorted into the school gym, which had been converted into a temporary command center. Folding tables. Radios crackling. Officers murmuring in low voices. The American flag hung crookedly on the far wall, like even it was uncomfortable being there. Sheriff Reynolds walked beside me, one hand resting casually on his duty belt. She's being evaluated, he said. Protocol. By who? I snapped. A doctor or one of your deputies? He ignored the question. We stopped at a table where a young deputy sat with a clipboard. He looked barely old enough to shave. When he looked up at the sheriff, his spine straightened instantly. Any updates? Reynolds asked. The deputy hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. The firearm was recovered from a locker. The deputy said carefully. No fingerprints yet. The student claims it wasn't his. I felt my blood boil. Claims? I said. My daughter saw him pull it out and press it against her leg. Reynolds finally turned to me. That's a serious accusation, he said evenly. Children sometimes misunderstand situations under stress. I took a step toward him before two officers subtly shifted their positions, blocking me without touching me. Don't you dare, I said through clenched teeth. Don't you dare suggest my daughter imagine this. His eyes hardened just a little. I'm saying, he replied, that we'll follow evidence, not emotion. At that moment, Melissa Reynolds walked in. The gym seemed to quiet when she did. She was dressed perfectly, designer coat, flawless hair, diamond earrings that caught the light. She didn't look like a woman whose son had just been involved in an armed incident at school. She looked like someone arriving late to a charity luncheon. Daniel, she said softly. He turned to her immediately. Our son is terrified, she continued, casting a sharp glance at me. He's locked in a room with strangers asking him questions like, he's a criminal. He is a criminal, I said. He brought a gun to school. Melissa laughed. Actually laughed. That's absurd, she said. Tyler would never do that. He's been targeted by jealous kids before. Ist der Herr, stunned. My daughter collapsed in the hallway, I said. She's in shock. Melissa leaned closer, lowering her voice, so only I could hear. Then perhaps, she said, you should teach her not to lie. That was the moment I almost lost control. I finally saw Emily an hour later. She was sitting on a cot in the nurse's office, wrapped in a blanket like she'd survived a disaster. Her face was pale. Her eyes looked distant, unfocused, like she was still somewhere else. When she saw me, she broke. Dad, she sobbed, burying her face in my chest. He had a gun. I swear. I swear. I know, I whispered, holding her tightly. I know, sweetheart. A woman in a gray blazer stood nearby, arms crossed. This is Ms. Harper, the nurse said. She's with Child Services. I looked at her sharply. Why is CPS here? Ms. Harper gave a tight smile. Whenever a minor is involved in a traumatic incident, we evaluate the home environment. What? I said. This trauma happened here. Sir, she replied calmly, we just want to make sure Emily has a safe place to return to. I understood then. This wasn't just about protecting Tyler. They were building a case against us. By the time the sun started to dip, the narrative had already been written. The sheriff's office released a preliminary statement. A report of a possible weapon at Lincoln Ridge Middle School prompted a precautionary response. The firearm was recovered from an unsecured locker. No arrests have been made. There is no evidence at this time that any student threatened another. When I read it on my phone, my hands shook with rage. "They're lying," Emily whispered from the back seat as we drove home. "I know," I said, "but we're not going to let them get away with it." She looked at me with fear in her eyes. His mom said his dad can make people disappear.
I pulled over.
Turned to face her. "Listen to me," I said firmly. "No one is making us disappear. Not him. Not anyone." I believed it when I said it. I was wrong. That night, there was an emergency HOA meeting. Melissa Reynolds had called it. Of course she had. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors whispered as I walked in with Emily's mother beside me. Some looked sympathetic. Others avoided our eyes. Melissa stood at the front, gavel in hand. "As many of you know," she began, "there was an unfortunate incident at the school today involving false accusations." False accusations. My wife's nails dug into my arm. Melissa continued, "I want to reassure everyone that our community remains safe. However, spreading rumors can cause unnecessary panic." She looked directly at us. "And legal consequences." A murmur rippled through the room. I stood up. "My daughter was threatened with a gun," I said loudly. "And you all know it." Silence. Then someone spoke up. "Sheriff Reynolds wouldn't cover something like that." Another voice. "Tyler's a good kid." Another. "Kids exaggerate." Melissa smiled. That smile said you're alone. As the meeting adjourned, a man I barely knew brushed past me and whispered, "Be careful." Outside, under the flickering parking lot lights, I saw a patrol car parked across the street from my house. Engine running. Watching. That night, Emily didn't sleep. Neither did I. Because I finally understood the truth. We weren't just fighting a bully. We were fighting a system designed to protect its own. And it was only just beginning. 3 hard strikes against the front door, authoritative, practiced, meant to intimidate. I was already awake. I'd been awake all night, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee, listening to Emily's uneven breathing from her bedroom. Every creak of the house had sounded like a threat. Every passing car felt like surveillance. When the knock came, my wife sat up in bed instantly. "They're here," she whispered. I opened the door to find 2 sheriff's deputies standing on my porch. Both wore neutral expressions. Both had body cameras blinking red. "Mr. Carter," one of them said, "we need to speak with you and your daughter."
About what?
I asked. "An investigation," he replied. "May we come in?" They sat Emily at the dining table like she was a suspect. One deputy asked questions. The other watched her like a hawk, pen hovering over a notepad. "Are you sure you saw a gun?" the first deputy asked. "Are you aware," he continued, "that making false statements to law enforcement is a serious offense?" My chair scraped loudly as I stood. "That's enough," I said. "She's a child." The deputy looked at me flatly. "So is Tyler Reynolds." That was deliberate. Calculated. After an hour of circular questioning designed to confuse and exhaust her, they finally left. But not before delivering the message. Given the inconsistencies, the deputy said, standing, "Child Services may recommend temporary supervision." My wife gasped. "You're threatening to take our daughter?" she cried. "No one said that," he replied. "We're just following procedure." When the door closed behind them, Emily burst into tears. "They don't believe me," she sobbed. I knelt beside her. "They do," I said. "They just don't care." That afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I stepped outside to answer it. "Mr. Carter," a woman's voice said. "My name is Rachel Nguyen. I work at Lincoln Ridge." My pulse quickened. "Why are you calling me?" "I should be," she said quickly. "But I was on hallway duty when your daughter collapsed." And Tyler Reynolds was right behind her, she whispered. He was shaking, like he'd seen a ghost. I held my breath. "I also saw him shove something into his locker," she continued. Something heavy. Will you testify? I asked. There was a long pause. My brother-in-law is a deputy, she said. They told staff to forget what they saw. Then she said quietly, I have student hall cameras saved on a personal drive. My heart pounded. Meet me, I said. No, she replied. They're watching you. I'll contact a lawyer. The line went dead. For the first time since this began, I felt something stir beneath the fear. Hope. Hope didn't last long. The next morning, I was fired. No warning. No prior complaints. Just a short email from HR. Due to concerns regarding your conduct and its impact on company reputation, your employment is terminated effective immediately. I'd worked there for 12 years. By noon, our bank called about a routine review of our accounts. By evening, CPS left a notice taped to our door. Emily read it silently. Dad, she asked, did I do something wrong? No, I said, my voice breaking. You did everything right. That night, a brick came through our living room window. No note. No message. Just broken glass and a warning. Sheriff Reynolds came himself the next day. No uniform this time. Just a pressed shirt, sleeves rolled up, badge clipped to his belt, casual power. I'm sorry this has gotten so stressful, he said, standing in my living room amid the broken glass. That was unnecessary. You going to arrest whoever did it? I asked. He smiled. Hard to investigate vandalism without witnesses. I crossed my arms. Why are you really here? He leaned closer. Withdraw the complaint, he said softly. Publicly. Say your daughter misunderstood. And if I don't, his smile vanished. Then the system will continue doing what it does best, he said. Protecting the community. My daughter is the community, I said. He met my eyes. Choose wisely, he replied. When he left, Emily was shaking. He scares me, she whispered. He should, I said. That means we're close. That night, an envelope appeared in our mailbox. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. And a note. If anything happens to me, give this to the media. I plugged it into my laptop. The video was grainy, angled down a hallway. I watched as Tyler Reynolds exited Emily's classroom. I watched him glance around. I watched him shove a black object into his locker. I paused the frame. Zoomed in. There was no mistaking it. A handgun. My hands trembled. We finally had proof. But proof alone doesn't matter when the law itself is compromised. We needed someone bigger. Someone they couldn't silence. I picked up my phone and made one call. To whom it may concern, I said when the line answered, I have evidence of a sheriff covering up an armed threat involving his son. There was a pause. Then, you should come in immediately.